start tonight in Iran, where the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has said the security forces have now brought the situation under total control following almost 2 weeks of anti-government protests. Demonstrations, however, appear to have continued in some areas, with the capital Tehran still in a state of near paralysis and evidence emerging of a brutal response by the authorities. The protests, which were sparked by soaring prices in the shops, spread to almost 100 cities and towns across every province in Iran. One American human rights group says it's verified more than 500 deaths. The country's president, Masoud Pezeshkian, claimed that the unrest was being manipulated by Iran's enemies. And the government has called for nationwide protests in support of the regime. President Trump says Iran's leadership has called, seeking to negotiate following his threats of military action in response to the killing of those protesters. He told reporters a meeting was being set up, but the US may have to act before that happens. But Iran has warned that it will attack US bases in the region in retaliation. Meanwhile, the exiled son of the Shah of Iran, Reza Pahlavi, who's become a figurehead for the protest movement, told the US broadcaster Fox News that American assistance is needed to enable the Iranian people to change the regime.
There seem to be some people killed that aren't supposed to be killed. These are violent, if you call them leaders, I don't know if they're leaders or just they rule through violence. But we're looking at it very seriously. The military is looking at it, and we're looking at some very strong options. We'll make a determination. Well, if they do that, we'll consider things targets that they wouldn't believe. If they do that, we will hit them at levels that they've never been hit before.
Mr. President, you have already established your legacy as a man committed to peace and fighting evil forces. There is a reason why people in Iran are renaming streets after your name. They know that you are totally opposite to Barack Obama or Joe Biden. They know that you're not going to throw them under the bus as they have had before. This is why they believe that this time they are empowered by the hope that you have their back. Your words of solidarity with the Iranian people and your administration has had tremendous positive effect. Let's hope that we can permanently seal this legacy.
And that's Reza Pahlavi, who is the crown prince of Iran, and he's become the sort of figurehead of these protests. And before him, of course, we heard from President Trump. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now on the line from London by the director of the Association of Anglo-Iranian Women in the UK, Leila Jazayeri. Ms. Jazayeri, thank you very much indeed for talking to us. What's the latest information that you have about these protests in Iran? Excuse me, we're hearing that they've spread to almost 100 cities and towns across every province in Iran. Well, the Foreign Minister, Abbas Araghchi, is saying that the security forces now have total control.
But Charles, thank you for having me on. Let me tell you, first of all, according to the network of main Iranian opposition, the People's Mujahideen Organization of Iran, inside the country, the number of those killed exceeds 3,000. Mrs. Mariam Rajavi, the leader of the main Iranian opposition, called that a crime against humanity. You just mentioned Reza Pahlavi. Let me tell you one thing your viewer needs to know. Despite shutting down internet and committing genocide, protests have grown stronger for 2 reasons. This uprising, in fact, is no longer an uprising, it's a revolution in the making. It's an organized, it's very much organized. And the second reason is that the protesters, the rebellious youth, are standing up to the security forces. It has become confrontational. The problem, the only thing that could actually crush and defeat this uprising is not the massacre. People are still out in the streets demonstrating and chanting and resisting. The only thing that could crush and defeat this uprising is a regime's wild conspiracies. And unfortunately, Western media has fallen for it. What is that conspiracy? The regime has managed to inject poison in the uprising. They have manufactured fake support for the former dictator's son, Reza Pahlavi. You see, for the regime, it doesn't cost anything to say long live Shah. He's nobody. There is no legitimacy. People of Iran do not come in the streets sacrificing their lives for another dictator to come to power. Can you see what the regime is doing? They are poisoned. They want to divide the nation. This is the conspiracy of the regime. And unfortunately, as I said,
well, let me get some
so
clarity.
The reason they do that is because they want to overshadow the actual resistance forces, the
Right.
driving force behind the uprising that is not allowing the protest, the
Right.
uprising to die down, is the resistance network of the People's Mujahideen Organization of Iran, led by Mariam Rajavi, a woman.
That's
There are
what I wanted
thousands
to.
of
I don't
them
mean to
across
interrupt
Iran
you there.
with
I don't
women
mean to interrupt you, Layla, but I wanted to get some clarity on that because we're talking about Reza Pahlavi, the exiled son of the former Shah of Iran, who's been calling, we just saw him on Fox television, calling for American intervention. I was going to ask you whether he has much support inside Iran, or are some people voicing support for him and the Shah in order to provoke and anger the Iranian regime? Because from what I've read, you yourself seem to be rallying support not for him, but for the politician Mariam Rajavi, who you hope will become the first female leader of Iran.
Absolutely. The regime knows itself who the main enemy is. Reza Pahlavi is an opportunist. I mean, let's face it, the first week of the uprising, he was on holiday. He's just an opportunist. He is actively undermining the uprising. And the regime is using him to divide the nation, to inject poison. And unfortunately, as I said, there are many, the regime use voiceovers. It put voiceovers over the chants of Iranian people who are protesting, chanting in favor of Reza Pahlavi. The aim is to divert the public anger away from becoming radical. As long as you don't say down with the dictator, down with Khamenei, it's fine. You can say long live Shah because he's nobody. Because they want to annihilate the main resistance force that are driving this protest. Do you see the conspiracy of the regime? And as I said again, the Western media, unfortunately, has fallen for him. Instead of telling your viewers, this is a conspiracy, the regime aims is to divert the public anger away from becoming radical and
Right.
sweeping off the regime.
Well,
they want to split the movement, reduce the turnouts, and ultimately weaken it from within and finish it off.
Right. Well, I mean, you talked about the communication blackout. I'm wondering how you're able to actually reach people in Iran. But I mean, we've seen videos coming out, and you touched on that earlier, showing lots and lots of dead bodies. So the regime is clearly fighting back, but I don't know what you make of that, but it looks like for many people, the cost of calling for change has been terrible.
Yes, I mean, the regime shut down the internet to kill this many people, commit genocide in silence. But what I'm trying to tell your viewers, that despite these brutal killings, the rebellious youth are continuing the protest because it's organized by the network of resistance of the main opposition, Mariam Rajavi. What is happening? They are standing up to these security forces. The difference this time is that they are clashing with the security forces. They set fires on the bases and offices of the security forces. They set their vehicles on fire. They block the regime's supply and reinforcement routes. So, and in some cases, they actually managed to disarm IRGC forces. What needs to be done, what we actually need is not boots on the ground. It's not military intervention. We don't need that. Iranian people, Iranian youth are quite capable of bringing the regime down. Only what we want is the right of Iranian people to self-defense to be recognized by the international community. The rest, we take care of it.
Well, despite the violence, and we've seen a lot of it on television, and you also mentioned quite a bit of that, analysts are saying that there is an important difference from previous demonstrations. They say the Iranian government has been severely weakened by the Israeli and American attacks last year and the loss of its allies in places like Syria and Lebanon. I mean, how much of a factor is all that?
That is actually true because, the Iranian regime after the uprising of 2022, the regime knew there was another uprising on the horizon. So it resorted to export of terrorism, the war, the 7th of October, and the proxy group. It failed. It wanted to delay the uprising. It failed. The Assad fell down, the proxies dismantled, the nuclear facilities destroyed. So that strategy failed. Then the regime executed 2,200 people in a single year in order again to delay this uprising. Again, it failed. That shows that the regime has come to a dead end. The Iranian people have nothing else to lose. They are determined this time to bring down the regime, and they are chanting death to the dictator, death to Khamenei. At the same time, they are saying death to the oppressor, be it the Shah or the supreme leader, signaling that they are fed up with dictatorship for over a century, monarchical and clerical dictatorship passing the regime to each other. This time, we want a democratic, pluralistic, secular, non-nuclear democratic Iran, led by Mariam Rajavi. And this is what the regime fears.
But of course, I understand, and you mentioned this previously, that President Pezeshkian has called for protests in support of the regime, and some of it has been taking place today. I mean, we've seen pictures of that. How big has it been?
Come on, I mean, how much support the regime has? The Revolutionary Guard, I mean, their own children, the children of the security forces and the IRGC are in the streets. They are protesting. We have seen signs when they attack, the children of them, they put their hands up. Look, don't shoot. I am the children of the security forces. Even within the regime, they have cracked. There is no popularity. This is just a stage managed show by the regime.
Well, meanwhile, of course, President Trump says he's been briefed on new options for military strikes against Iran in response to the killing of protesters, and that he's seriously considering action without specifying what form any action might take. Yet at the same time, he's also saying that the Iranian government has been in touch and that a meeting is going to be set up. Are you clear what the American position is on Iran and these protests?
Well, we welcome President Trump's positive stance towards and firm stance towards the regime. For years, and in fact decades, the Western policy of appeasement only emboldened the Iranian regime to export terror and war in the region, and embolden the regime to execute and suppress Iranian people inside Iran. This has been a counterproductive policy towards Iran. We hope the rest of the West, Europe, join President Trump and stand firm against the regime. And it was encouraging. The messages of President Trump they are very encouraging to the Iranian people. But ultimately, the solution lies within Iran. As Mrs. Mariam Rajavi said, the regime change is the sole responsibility of Iranian people. In previous uprising, the West merely watched, which benefited the regime most of all. But now what we need to be done is practical support, as I emphasize again, is to recognize the right of these rebellious youth to self-defense. They are fighting the security forces with bare hands. In some places, they managed to disarm these security forces who are they are armed to their teeth and retaliate. This right needs to be recognized. That would boost the morale of these rebellious youth at the forefront of the protest. If they want to help, the military solution is not the solution for Iran. What needs to be done? Empower the youth, the protesters, by recognizing their right to defense. There is already an organized resistance movement in Iran. Remember when Assad fell, everybody was saying, oh, what happened? Within 10 days, they fall down. What happened? There was an organization in place. It's exactly the same with Iran. Why don't you hear about it in Western media? Because Iranian regime for decades has run a toxic misinformation campaign about its main opposition. The conspiracy that the regime is at present is using is exactly the same. They want to divide the people. They want to poison it from within in order to isolate the main network of resistance. How do they do it? They create this artificial support for the former dictators. My family, I was talking to a member of my family about a week ago. He said, nobody supports Reza Pahlavi. Nobody goes to the streets and lose their life for Reza Pahlavi, the son of a former dictator, to come to power. Look, he's never distanced himself with the crimes his father committed. His father was a dictator. He made Evin prison. He put intellectuals in prison. He was corrupt. Why should the Iranian risk their life for his son to come to power? This is the conspiracy of the regime. The regime wants to to shut down, to just annihilate, to just remove, completely stop the uprising. And who better than assist him? Reza Pahlavi. Please, do not buy to this conspiracy.
Okay, well, we certainly hope that peace returns to Iran sooner rather than later. It's not really, we don't want to see people dying, certainly not the protesters. I want to thank you very much indeed. Leila Jazayeri is the director of the Association of Anglo-Iranian Women in the UK, and she was talking to me on the line from London.